What lessons have you learned from I Love Lucy, whether it's writing, acting, timing?
All the above. If you study the scripts, you can see how to lay out a farce. You drop little seeds, and then they all come together here, and then there's something that turns it on its head, and then you have the big finale scene. Look at the Chocolate Factory. Look at any of those shows. The writing is stellar to me. So it's taught me writing. Lucille Ball taught me timing. Vivian Vance too. I think she's so underrated. Everybody loves her, but really study her. She's brilliant. And what I also got out of Lucy was learning who Buster Keaton was, who taught her. And that brought me back to one of the biggest influence in my life, which is Buster Keaton and the gags that he did. And I've tried to emulate a couple of them, and I'm no Buster Keaton. Let me tell you, you have to be in shape to do his stuff. But I learned timing from them. The one thing I learned from Lucy, which was not necessarily a good thing, is if she was on in New York, 10 times a day, I watched it 10 times a day, And I think when you're starting out, if you emulate someone, it's because you have the same ear, comedic ear. It's a rhythm thing. It's musical. All comedy is musical to me. And she was the master, and I was a student. But I think you're connected to somebody when you're starting out for a reason. I think it has to do with the ear of what you're hearing, and it sort of tunes into what I want to do and all that. But what she would do is I would see her deliver a punchline, and it would start there, and she would finish it over here, and she'd start it over here, and it would finish over there. So I sort of incorporated that into some of the things I do. If I had a joke I want to throw out to the audience, and I would finish it over here. Then I got to work with her, and I sat in a rehearsal, and I realized the reason she started over here and ended over here, she was reading the lines off a cue card. And but it's too late. I do it now, and it works for me. But that's something I didn't plan on learning from her, but I sort of did. And I also learned from Desi Arnaz and Jess Oppenheimer how to produce a show, because I've studied the way they worked. And it feels so similar to me and my group of people back in New Jersey when we put the shows on. Everything's done with the handshake, it's just, and you use the same people over and over again. But the most important thing in terms of performing is you take the most insane situations you can, and you've got to believe they're all real. You've got to believe the characters are real. You've got to believe the situations are real. That's the only way that works.
Do you think not having a degree in theater or writing enabled you to take more risks?
Yeah, probably so. Because I didn't have anything to compare it to. I think if I had studied too much, I would have put boundaries over what I do. As opposed to, I've always been before Nike, it was always just do it, for me. It was just do it. You want to do this, just do it. And yeah, just do it, and life's too short, it better be fun. Put those two together. That's sort of how we work.
Right, and plus you had mentioned previously, I believe, that your father didn't really believe in the theater or as a profession.
Oh, he, worst day of his life, worst day of my father's life was, because very sports-minded father and his brothers, they were all state this, all state that, and my grandfather was asked to pitch for the New York Giants, and he beat Bobby Jones in some golf tournaments, so they were all sports. And then I came along, and worst day of my father's life was, so you going to try for the baseball team this year? No, I'm going to be in the chorus of Oliver. So, but he came around. He came around. Sure.
But in some ways, you think that gave you more freedom? Because, when someone's sort of known as being great in this one area, they don't want to let down certain people. Whereas if people have already written you off in some sense, there's a little more freedom. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, they didn't. My parents never wrote me off. They were, as much as I wasn't the athlete he wanted me to be, he was always there, front row, every show. No, we had a great combination in my house of a work ethic father, insane work ethic father that we've all abused. We've all taken that and just gone nuts with it. And my mother was the unconditional love thing. So you knew that if you failed in something, you could always go home. You know, it was always there for you. And those two things together, I think, most people, I would go into comedy because I had a horrible childhood. I had a great childhood. I have a great family. And half the time I think I'm a fraud because I didn't get the horrible thing that made me go into comedy, So instead this is something I always wanted to do.
Going back to story, what are some questions you always ask yourself when crafting a story?
The original stuff, before I knew what I was doing, was always, what gags do I want to perform? And then I'll put a plot through them. It's the wrong way to write, but that's how we started off. What do I ask when we want to do a story?
That's interesting. Sorry to interrupt, but so you're thinking of funny moments where somebody trips?
I knew I wanted to fall out of a window. I knew I wanted to hit somebody in the head with a bottle. That kind of stuff. And then we would sort of cram a plot through it and then turn it into a farce. We got away with that a lot. And in a weird way, the Boomer Boys musical that I was just talking about was the same thing. We had the songs, then we had to figure out a plot to get them all together. But when I structure a story, there's still a part of me that, as an actor, is like, what do I get to do in this? What do I get to play? And in the very early shows, it was also, how many girlfriends can I have in this show? Okay, well, but that doesn't happen anymore. I would say that whatever it is, because they're all so different, it's hard to even answer this. It has to be believable, no matter how broad we go with our shows, and they're broad. Everybody in it has to be a believable character, and that I mostly got from Jane, because her thing was always, how real can we make it? Mine was always, how funny can we make it? And it was a good combo. But I usually, I don't know how to answer that. I really don't. I never analyze, until sitting here today, I never really analyzed the craft of what I do. I just sort of do it. So it's hard for me to even know what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair. Just lastly, what sense of accomplishment does writing give you?
The weird thing about writing versus acting is I take the acting very personally. If I used to go on an audition, I didn't get it, I feel like, oh, what did I do? If you don't like my writing, I don't care. I just don't care. It's freeing in a weird way. It's fun, and I'm really proud of the work we've done. Yeah, I really am. And I'm never, in the same token, I'm never satisfied that we've finished the job. I always want to go back in and do more.
And I'm only assuming here, please correct me if I'm wrong, but is that because maybe with the acting they're rejecting you more?
Yes.
With the writing, it's not so personal, it's about a character or something that you wrote?
I think that's probably it, yeah. And there are times that I've gone, back to acting in other things, other people's shows and other people's TV things, just as an actor. And you do, it's like, how am I doing? And I never get that with the writing. Although, I have been to see some of my very early shows, and I sit in the audience going, oh, God, glad nobody knows I'm here. You know?